And welcome back. Of course, this is the series called Power Digital, looking at local government election. Felicia stays with us in this segment representing the PEP, and we would like to welcome, I hope they can put their cameras on, Lieutenant Commander Norman Dindial and Professor Patrick Watson, who will be focused on finance and economy. Lieutenant Commander Dindial for the NTA, Patrick Watson for Hope. Felicia Holder will stay with us for PEP, and we're supposed to be joined by Gregory Fernandez, representing the MSJ. Gregory is now with us. Good morning, Gregory. Good morning, Professor Watson.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Lieutenant Commander Norman Dindial. Thank you all for joining us this morning.
Morning.
Trying to get a different kind of discussion going in the local government scenario in Trinidad and Tobago. And let's start with the first question. And I'll pose that question first to Gregory Fernandez of the MSJ. Let's focus on investment and finance in the local government sector. And if you think the law as proposed and when it's fully proclaimed will make a difference in the financing of local government bodies to the benefit of the burgesses. Gregory, you're first.
Well, a key element of that is what are the economic policies being deployed at the local government level. So, you know, whether there's a mechanism for developing sound policies at that level and ensuring that the money goes to that is going to be key. You know, I'm not aware that within those local communities that there, as David had indicated, there is a bit of organizational structure that allows the burgesses to participate at the level of proposing what are the areas of the economy that money could be invested to, that they would see direct benefits from it. So that is one of the challenges, right? And that is key to, you know, how the money is being used. Because if the money is just being used for, you know, addressing roadworks and other things like that, there would be some element of economy where persons are going to benefit. But if we are looking at sustainable development within those communities, then the economic approach has to be much broader.
Right, Professor Watson?
Yes, I hope I'm being seen. And
yes, you are. Loud and clear.
Good. Yes, let me just say some examples of what I lived in two big countries, the UK and France, and how they did the financing of local government was almost automatic. And in the case of both countries, it was based largely on what I think the British call a council tax. And the money went straight into the coffers of the local government. You know very well that in the case of things like the road tax, our equivalent of the council tax, which would be eventually the property tax once again, it goes into the central fund, the consolidated fund, and may be distributed by the Minister of Finance accordingly. That is not the best way to develop a local economy. Remember, within certain communities, there are economic issues. Some communities, like the one I live in, is semi-rural. There's a large agricultural sector here, and there's money required dealing with things like flooding and so on. And remember that the agriculture sector, in my view, is to play a great role in economic diversification. To the extent, and that's a national issue, and it's for the earning of foreign exchange. So it's at the very local level. You could begin encouraging these kinds of activities, including, and I would want to suggest, some separate funding within the local communities for supporting innovation and entrepreneurship, which is absent even rarely at the national level. technically fully absent, notwithstanding the existence of one or two windows of opportunity, but it's clearly not working. And in fact,
time, Professor, we got to go to the next speaker.
Sure.
Hold this one, please. Lieutenant Dindial, go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much, Paul. And I'm very glad to be here with this esteemed group. Now, Paul, you won't find much debate from us and the NTA in some of these issues that you're discussing, especially when it comes to investment and opportunity. You would find that all the political parties here, we have the same ideas. What you find not happening is that leadership and that management of the principles. Now, you see, in local government, when you're dealing with investment, you have to recognize that you can't get anything done if the people don't feel safe and secure. So we come back to our first session. The businesses in the environment, the businesses and the communities, even the agricultural people in the urban and rural sectors, you must feel safe first. That's in the economy. In that, you will find people coming out more. So if you have things like restaurants, manufacturing sector, there is where you're going to have the investment. You have to have that sort of security. People will come out more. They will spend. You will see the restaurants being open. You will see the manufacturing sector also getting things done. In the agricultural sector, people, there's a lot of perennial larceny going on. So it comes back to that confidence that the people have in the country. And we see that even if we go into the macro aspect of things, because you will not have foreign investors coming into your country and invest if you have no security and stability within your economy, within your structures. So foreign investors are not going to come into Trinidad and Tobago and invest because they are thinking themselves they will be attacked. So you have that translating into the banking industry. So when you have insurance, you have all these people not feeling secure to invest in Trinidad and Tobago. And it comes all the way back down to our first segment that you were saying, Mr. Paul. We have to feel safe and secure in everything. And then that translates back into proper management of an accountability of holding the thing across the board. Financial investment.
Thanks. Good morning, Phillip Alexander. Investment and finance in the local government regional bodies.
Yes, good morning. Good morning to everyone. Thanks for having me. I want to say in response to the last person speaking, we fundamentally disagree. So him saying that everybody agrees is not correct. I want to use as an example that America spends $32 billion a year on roads, and that $32 billion is paid for by local gas tax. The Progressive Empowerment Party believes that all funding, all taxes collected locally should be spent locally. What central government is doing now is taxing people at the local level and then using it nationally for agenda items that do not affect people locally. We've heard the term restaurants 3 times in this debate, I believe. That is how we measure in how well the economy doing. Let's talk about jobs in the community. Let's talk easy access to credit for small business development. Let's talk access to sporting and cultural facilities, not just carnival time and World Cup time. Let's talk more green space for community development. How we leave all the national crime fight. How about we leave all the national crime fight in the central government and debate at national elections and focus on issues that affect us at the local level. The Progressive Empowerment Party proposes that local government be empowered. In fact, we have a proposal that changes the Municipal Corporation Act to a constituency board of supervisors that more approximates and mirrors the way the constituency is set up. And it should be financed at budget time so that everyone knows in your constituency for the next fiscal year, you have $800 million to spend on roads, on bridges, on drains, on parks, on schools, on flooding, on water, on lights, and on crime and municipal police. But if we continue to make policing the people the most important issue, that will not make a difference in the country. And I remember Keith Rowley, who one of the leaders on this thread used to work for, saying that you can't put a police officer in everybody's bedroom, or was it Patrick Manning that said that? I can't remember, but I want to say that that is correct. People need to police themselves, and they are not going to be able to police themselves as long as social inequity, inequality, and poverty abounds. Crime is a function of poverty in Trinidad and Tobago. The drug trade running unchecked. You probably just bring that up in the Senate.
Phillip, for the pause, thank you. We'll come back to you in a while. Starting with Professor Watson on this one, do you think the proposal, which is now based in law, that property taxes collected by the regional corporations and used for the services and infrastructure at some level in the corporations, the 14 corporations, will actually redound to the benefit of the burgesses as proposed in the law?
Yeah, if the law is implemented as it says, I cannot see how it cannot happen. My fear is that I think there is a loophole inside of that some of this still ends up going into the consolidated fund before being redistributed. I can't swear to that, but it's a very unfortunate circumstance that we have here. I think that most of us, including the people present here, are not opposed to a property tax, are not opposed to a local government tax. But that's exactly what they want to see happen. The speaker, Philip, who just spoke, mentioned that if you collect these monies, I forgot that, in fact, that there's this road tax that is supposed to be for property, for development within the communities. And it's not only the property tax is going to be the biggest one if and when it is implemented. And if it is used in that, it will go a long way to assist, but it may not be enough because there are many other concerns about that the community has that may require greater financing than they are now willing to give. The central government is going to remain in charge of the main purse strings, and it's not going to do much to assist the wider community. There are always loopholes in these laws, as there is, for instance, in the recent procurement legislation. I think you yourself may have pointed that out in one of your contributions in the Senate. I'm not sure. I don't want to give you credit if it's not due. But the point is that we have to be mindful that local government needs to be empowered. It needs to be legitimized in the strictest sense, including, as the recent speaker just mentioned, at the level of crime fighting. We do not want to have to depend always on handouts from the central government, and then the bigotry, the favors begin where if I am not within your party, that it doesn't 15
seconds.
That's fine. I'm finished. Thank you.
All right, Gregory Fernandez, do you think the laws proposed and when fully proclaimed will actually mean that the monies collected by regional bodies will actually mean that services improve because now you're paying taxes and there's an expectation where that is concerned. You're expecting services to improve. You're expecting some level of infrastructural upgrades to be consistent. You're still muted, Gregory.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that I want to agree with a lot of what Dr. Watson said, that, you know, there will be some benefit, definitely, because once the money is coming directly to the councils, they will be able to undertake spend in the communities to address infrastructure and other issues. But again, you know, what is prioritized, how you know, the whole thing is looked at in the context of the full community. What is, you know, those things, whether there are mechanisms for prioritizing what really should be priority and so on, will impact on the quality of what is given, right? I think we need more democratization generally in the country, and the ability for the persons and the burgesses to have a say in how those whatever resources are available are spent is key to really ensuring that, you know, what really needs to be addressed are addressed.
Philip, do you think it will actually work as envisioned?
I think Gregory is correct. And I want to say that the MSJ have been consistent in focusing on social inequality, which translates to the failure of local government to properly treat with its burgesses. I think Professor Patrick Watson hit the nail on the head. And I think that that is where we need to be. We need to be thinking national and acting local when we're talking local government reform.
What do you mean by that? Give us some details on that. What do you mean by that?
We need to make sure that all the resources that are collected on a national level could be pooled and distributed equally. You cannot say that the money you collect in Goodwood Park will be spent in Goodwood Park and the money that you collect in Beetham will be spent in Beetham, because that will be a difference in amounts and volumes there. What we want is to get the country to a national level, and as a nation is a collection of communities. Once we focus on the development of all of the communities, the nation will take care of itself. We want to make sure that the quality of the roads and the drains and the amount of green spaces per capita, etc., in all communities are the same, so that all of the people, regardless of their financial position, would have the same hope and opportunity to develop themselves and their families. That goes to the first issue, will undo much of the crime that we have in Trinidad and Tobago as we give our young people especially hope and opportunity. We also have the issues of our schools that close every day at 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock. We have so many of our elders and retirees that have so much to give back and no opportunity to do so. Why we don't open those schools? We already paid for them. Why we don't open them and give it to people who have years of experience that they could teach the young ones coming up? You could create more hope and opportunity just by doing that today. It don't cost us $1. If we wanted to, Trinidad and Tobago could be one of the best places in the world to live. All of our parks, our green spaces should be well taken care of, and the responsibility should be put on local government to develop school grounds and school facilities, basketball, tennis, all of the sports you could think of culturally. We should be looking at improving the access to children to music lessons. Peter Minchell said once, our people have a burn inside them to be rhythmic, and we don't give them the opportunity to express it. Only a set of panyard. What happened to piano? What happened to guitar? What happened to flute and saxophone and trumpet? We were also brass people too. Let's go back to that. Let's use all of the access to funding generated locally to develop our communities locally, so our people could have something to look forward to other than a life of crime.
Thank you. Lieutenant Commander Dindial.
Yeah, Paul. You won't find much argument from us here, but we must say from the last speaker, it can't be equally at all. We'll tend to agree with the MSJ. It has to be equitable, not equally, because each community and each Burgess has a different need. So needs analysis needs to be done. But how the legislation is proposed as it stands, if it works out properly, it should happen. It's left to be seen. But on top of that, you have to have a proper management, because we have to make sure that the budget is balanced. There are no corruption issues in there. And as the former speaker was saying, there are so many loopholes sometimes. So we have to look at the legislation a little more with a fine-tooth comb to see and close.
What's a loophole you can identify? I'm presuming you came to this forum having looked at the legislation. What do you think is a major loophole?
I haven't looked at the legislation in detail. But there are some loopholes there where the money, some of the taxes being collected has to go back into central government. When that money goes back into central government, how it is disbursed has to be looked at, because central government, yes, we understand that that's how government gets their money and fixes things. But that money coming back into central, if you're saying that the money is supposed to be for the local and regional government to do the things in their burgesses, which is fine, but that about the money that is going back into the consolidated fund, when it is diverse, is it going to be used for something else at a higher policy, or what is it? Because if you are saying to me that it's to be collected for the local people and the burgesses to be used, we need to know what percentage is going to come back and what percentage is going to be used at central government. Because I'm hoping that the monies that are using at local government will be used in the burgesses to bring the burgesses to where they're supposed to be. And we have mechanisms in place already. We need to ask ourselves why the mechanisms are failing. So our councillors need to recognize that they need to be out there more and find out what the burgesses needs. Because in some communities, as the previous speaker was saying, you will not need a green park. There are green parks already. But there are other communities that are deprived that needs those things. They need schools, they need green parks, and they need those things. So the money needs to be diverse equitably, not equally.
Let me start with Philip on this one. This is a local government election, but many have suggested there are many national issues. We dealt with crime as one of them. What is your party's perspective? Because in many cases, the issues related to on the local scale are related to the issues that we have as a country on the national scale. What is your party's perspective on the major challenges facing us economically in Trinidad and Tobago? I'll start with Phillip on this.
Main challenges facing us economically is a lack of vision at a national level. We are not international development. Our national infrastructure has not kept pace with our population growth. Neither has our national development plans for our people. Not one political party that has held office has ever had a vision for Trinidad and Tobago and its people outside of, look, oil and gas coming out of the ground, let's make money off of it. How about we develop the human capital of Trinidad and Tobago and focus on what makes us unique, do a strengths and weakness analysis of the people, see what we're most likely and capable of. Where we located on the globe provides us with a lot of opportunities. Our climate, the relationships.
Administration done just that pestle and SWOT analysis, looking at our location, our competitive advantages, but we still are heavily dependent on oil and gas.
Because they come up with, and I remember a former PNM General Secretary saying to me that we are very good at doing surveys and coming up with the right information, but not using it. So if we have the information and we could speak to it intelligently, then the first step, we've done the first step. Now is to use it and put it to work for us. I just heard somebody say that not every community needs green spaces. I can't think of a community that wouldn't need a green space. Green space is important to national development because it's important to community development. Because people could sit down and exchange ideas and de-stress after the day, play a little sports, the elders could go for a walk. All of these things need to come back into the conversation. We've turned Trinidadians into consumers and laborers. We need to look at them as people again. People have needs. In our development of our economy, those needs need to be represented. We've lost our culture to China. We pretend that we still have carnival, but it is imported from China. That's not the same thing. Carnival used to be 6 months of people wire bending and sticking and gluing and designing and making. Why can't we go back to that? Why couldn't we subsidize that the way the Chinese government subsidized the cost of them manufacturing our carnival? We could get to a place where Trinidad makes sense to all Trinbagonians again, where every creed and race could actually find an equal place. But it's going to start with us looking at an economy that makes sure that foreign exchange, that credit is available to everybody so that we could develop Trinidad and Tobago for all.
Patrick Watson, what are the major economic challenges facing TNT?
Well, I will just continue. I'm not in any way going to contradict what Phillip said, but I'll probably dig deeper into some. The most fundamental problem facing us, which can begin, the solution for which can begin at the local level, is the problem of economic diversification, allied to the need to create different sources of foreign exchange earning on which we are crucially dependent. We continue to believe that oil and gas will be our savior. I mean, the Patrick Manning government used to repeat that over.
You know, I saw an economic bank bulletin recently, and this is putting everybody, that says despite trillions of dollars spent, only 11.6% of the world's energy sources are championed by renewable energy. It's still coal, oil, and gas primarily, and will be that for decades to come.
That is a fact, and that's notwithstanding the Paris Accords, to which we are all signatories, where we are saying we want to cut down.
So oil and gas will be used around the world for decades to come.
Yes, no, don't feel that I am saying that we must stop it. That is not so. Well, we must certainly find different sources of foreign exchange so that all our foreign exchange, which is fundamentally the truth in this country, our entire source of foreign exchange is oil and gas. That's not fully true, but that is a good approximation. And I grew up hearing about diversification. I grew up hearing about different sources of foreign exchange, and it has just never happened. And it is because, and the PNM has been in power for most of that time, but the largest chunk of that time. And we go on, and only recently things were going, you know, that we are producing less and less oil, and even if the price is right, we are not selling, we are not gaining from it as we ought to. The biggest one recently, because of our unfortunate situation in Ukraine, we benefited from a relatively high price, and we can't go on hoping to depend on people's discomfort and people's problems to living. And that is exactly what has happened here. And of course, that is not going to last forever. We must find a way out of this, and there is no effort. And whatever you think about it, our foreign exchange is slipping away little by little. The numbers are falling daily, notwithstanding the little mini boom that we got from the Ukraine crisis. We are unable to provide foreign exchange, and most of those people who produce here and they sell abroad, they are net losers of foreign exchange. Notwithstanding the fact that they are better than those who depend exclusively on. Well, I'm going to say, I think I've said what I have to say on that.
Gregory Fernandez, what's the biggest economic challenge facing this country?
Well, I want to agree with Dr. Watson. So the whole question of diversification is key. Indonesia used to be a net exporter of energy, and they are now a big importer. And Trinidad and Tobago is headed in a similar direction. The oil is dwindling, and the gas is also under some stress. So we have to look at other sources of how we're going to replace that. And I think
levels also, even though the prices are higher now, commodity prices, but our production levels are abysmal. But look, let me not say abysmal.
Right. So the thing is that key is investing in our human resources, right? Because part of Trinidad's problem is, if you look at what's happening in the world now, spend on research and development is a big thing that is financing new products, improving older products, and so on. And that is how you get to sell to markets out there, right? So if we're not doing any R&D, then we are basically a primary exporter, because we are not, we have no other resources to sell to the world. But so we have to know. I mean, I can mention I actually own a software development company, right? And we export to 21 countries, and we earn significant foreign exchange above our needs, right? So and it's a diversified play, because
why is that not a model for other entrepreneurs to expand into and be facilitated by the state to earn more foreign exchange? I know I look into your time, so I'll give you 45 more seconds.
Right. So, well, the thing is the supporting infrastructure by the state for they have a lot of talented people in Trinidad with many ideas that can gain foreign exchange. I think when one of the things is, I think that should be exposed to the public. That was never done. I know a lot of the public went to the Economic Development Board with many ideas for how Trinidad can be transformed. And remember, Dr. Farrell, and they abandoned that because, of course, the government wasn't taking them on. It was a pappy show. But there were many ideas that were taken to that forum around what we can do to improve our economic situation. And I feel that we should really make an attempt to have Dr. Farrell and the, notwithstanding it was for the government, publish some of what was done there. And maybe that can help us see some of the things that we can really get into that can help. I myself went there with I myself went there with an idea with Pat Bishop concerning the Triniland, which was a cultural theme park, right? That had great possibilities, and of course, all of that was buried in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you, Lieutenant Commander Dindial. Biggest challenges economically facing the country.
Well, Paul, we have to first of all be real. Our economy is heavily based on oil and gas, and that's predominantly where we get our income from. But we have our deals before from previous administrations has put us in a place that we are seeing today, because they have brokered deals where everything is on the downstream side of the economy, not on where we exploration. Because right now, oil is dwindling, gas is dwindling. Our trains, we do not even have enough gas to supply our local demand. And we have deals where we have to give foreigners, those foreign investments, the gas that we produce. So in order for us to actually be able to get anything out of this, we need now to put more emphasis on exploration. That's where we are. Now, we're not going to talk about diversification of the economy. That's something else. But you're asking where we are and what is our problem. But our problem is that our deals that we didn't cut a good deal for us for Trinidad and Tobago. The deals were really for the big oil giants and the companies and the downstream industry that are not us. The methanol companies, the fertilizer companies. We don't have enough for our own manufacturing agencies. So we need to go back to the table, have better deals, and we need, if we are looking at oil and gas specifically, we need to look at exploration. When it comes to diversification of the economy, there are so many other things that are there. The policies are there, they just have been shelved or not prioritized. We have a fishing industry, we have a 200-mile economic fishing zone, and we don't utilize it. All the fishing that comes into Trinidad and Tobago, it is exported abroad. You ask yourself around certain times, why are we paying so much for fishing? Because the fishing, we don't have big fishing fleets here, you know, and the big fishing fleets and longliners that actually come to Trinidad and Tobago, everything is exported. We could do wave generation for energy. We in a country, we haven't recognized also our strategic importance of where we are globally. And that has gone back. And I don't want to see this, but if you look at it, this was done even way back in the slave trade. They recognize our importance of where we are. Things came from East, from Africa, came to Trinidad and Tobago and were dispersed over. We have big ships coming in, post-Panamax vessels, hub and spoke wheel, where ships can come in here and we can transship goods all over. And these are some of the things, recognizing that Trinidad and Tobago is an island, embracing it, embracing that we have to look at our maritime.
15 seconds. You have some time. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So there's so many other things that we can do when it comes to diversification. However, the fundamental thing, safety and security. We will not have investment if we don't feel safe.
Open forum for the last 5 minutes in this segment before we move on to governance and government. We have Louis Singh and Lauren Couchet standing by. Now, the proposal is that, according to law, the local government bodies will collect the money. There are concerns about whether or not it should pass through the consolidated fund at any level. And hopefully this money will redound directly, be able to be used by the corporation and regional bodies to effect real change, to provide consistent services and some level of infrastructural development in these regional bodies. I will say it plainly, it's not something I'm proud to say. We have a corruption issue in Trinidad and Tobago. Timothy Hammersmith mentioned it earlier on. We can't bury our heads in the sand where that is concerned. There are issues related to audited financials from regional bodies, the allegations of corruption in specific regional bodies, etc. And now we're putting money directly into their hands and hoping that we don't have the recurring decimal of corrupt practices, corrupt officials, etc., swindling away the money and it not reaching the burgesses and the citizens for their benefit. What are your perspectives? And this is an open forum, so you can jump in as you like, on what accountability and transparency mechanisms should be in place regarding local government bodies, so that we don't end up in 5 years talking about, well, we put money in their hand and it all disappears into corrupt practices.
Let me start, Paul. I think corruption is a national issue, and in fact, the worst offenders are those at the national levels. They may even use their transfers to local government bodies on a corrupt basis. There is nothing that happens here that isn't a kickback involved, and so on. So to pass that on to the local governments, I find is a little bit unfair. I am not saying, don't get me wrong, that I am not in any way denying that is so. But you know, there's the monkey see, monkey do, and especially as if it's happening at the higher level, everybody feels that they can. Well,
we've had ghost gangs and all sorts of stuff. Let's not pretend it doesn't exist.
Paul, when you say a free commentary, we can jump in at any time, or we have to wait on you to note to us?
No, you can jump in at any time with respect.
To Professor Watson, he is always spot on, he is always bright, but he comes across as archaic because he seems to think that the past equals the present or the future. Corruption could end today. If we wanted corruption to end today, we need to start charging white-collar criminals. We need to name them and shame them. We need to take that campaign to the Chamber of Commerce and the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association and DOMA. Come on, let's be real. It's not the little poor black hen chicken committing corrupt crimes. Take it where it is happening. We need corruption law with teeth. Our Integrity in Public Life Act does not create the environment that it sought to do. The procurement legislation that was just passed into law was gutted. If you look at predial larceny, people talk about predial larceny. The Progressive Empowerment Party has been saying for years, the same way if you get catch with 5 cases of Johnny Walker Black in your trunk, if you don't have a license, police can unlock you up. But you could park up on the side of the road with a 3-ton truck full of avocado and nobody asking you where you get the avocado from. The day you lock up 1 truckload of plantain or avocado or pumpkin at the side of the road, all predial larceny done in the country. We could fix it. You, Paul Richards, you speak brilliantly in the Senate. You say these things in the Senate all the time. And I just want to, I'll close with this. I'll close with this. You, Paul Richards, know in the Senate that you speak to these issues all the time, and that if we wanted to, we could have fixed it. I want to tell my colleagues on the other side, when the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to treat every problem as a nail. You can't lock up green space. You can't lock up flooding. You have to deal with it from a national level at a local level if you want to fix it. You can fix it.
Gregory? Dindial?
Well, I think the whole question of oversight is a general national issue that we need to address, right? Where we have independent bodies having oversight over even the burgesses at the local government
level. They don't work effectively, Gregory.
Well, you know, to me, it's a matter of empowerment of. Using a term there, Phillip Party, but it's empowerment of giving people the teeth, you know, to be able to bite, right? Because you know, I was just reading that the Taliban was able to shut down the poppy fields and the other things in Afghanistan, and that they were trying. The Americans were there and others were there trying to do it for decades, and the Taliban came in and in 2 tours it was done. So. To me, part of what is required is that people have the will to do what they need to do, you know. But
that's a big if, because if we depend on the will to do the right thing in this country,
police cannot enforce laws that don't exist. I remember during the lockdown when the little Turan from Kokorit was locked up by the beach, the people in Bayside on the other side of the wall was allowed to fight because they weren't correct laws.
Philip, let Dindial have a comment, please.
You see, obviously this speaker was not listening to the previous round on crime and criminality, and is not aware of how the system works. If you understand how the system works, I
don't get answer him because he's referring to me.
We have laws in Trinidad and Tobago, and you have to understand how evidence and how you proceed, how the procedural ways for evidence. So there are laws. We know what to do. And as Gregory was saying, Gregory is not giving the laws, teaching the law is there. It is putting the correct people in place, having the people selected for duty in the correct forum, and the people that will be able to do their duty without fear or favor or implications of being pressured by the political powers. So it is fair. It is equitable.
So what are you saying, Lieutenant Dindial, that for 60 years we have not had the structures and the laws and the right people because we have a history of significant corruption?
I'm saying to you, Paul, we have the correct laws. Yes, some of them are archaic and some need to be changed because we have the bicycle regulation.
Well, why have there been so much corruption in this country?
There I'm going to go and tell you the answer. The answer is because of political interference, because our independent bodies have not been able to act independently without...
Paul, I would like to jump in, please.
Because you have the Chief of Defense Staff being appointed by the Prime Minister. You have the Commissioner of Police being appointed by the Prime Minister. You have the AG's office being appointed. So you have every single independent body in Trinidad and Tobago being eroded by the politicians. So when you have those things...
Prime Minister is an elected monarch.
Paul, I'd like to jump in, please.
Afraid to come in and do their duty. They need to do their duty.
If Lieutenant Dindial said that these things exist, when other people were beneficiaries of it, why they didn't speak to those issues then? Why they didn't speak to the issue that the Prime Minister appoints the Commissioner and the Attorney General and all of the judges and all of the systems that govern the judges and everything else? Why is it that only when people are fired from public office, they suddenly find their morality and their integrity and their common sense? Well, these are things that should have been dealt with a long time ago. This should have been dealt with a long time ago. I heard people talking about exploration. In Brazil, they just increased all, I would like to finish. In Brazil, they just increased their net output of of oil and gas just by proper maintenance of the systems. You asked a good question there, Paul. If we have the rules, why we don't have the systems? Systems don't require special people. Systems are self-governing, and you could provide oversight to systems. It doesn't require any specific names, any specific brands. What you need is a proper system of governance and enforce it.
The good thing about it is that I have the control of all the microphones here. So if I want to stop anybody from talking, I don't want to do that, but I could do that.
So Paul,
I just have one statement.
Let Gregory go, please.
One statement to make, which is that clearly one of the biggest problems we have is that we have a parliamentary dictatorship. Right? Everybody just spoke about
prime ministerial dictatorship.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Prime ministerial dictatorship. That's the word. Prime ministerial dictatorship. And I think that if everybody agrees that we need to deal with that, that could help us start solving the problem.
Correct.
How would we deal with that if PNM and UNC fails to deal with that when they get into government? How? If we talk it here and then somebody gets into government and forget that they promised recall and reform and campaign finance reform and they promise fixed election dates. We know the things to fix outside here, and then we get into office and we get the blue lights and we get the salary and we forget that this is what we promised to do. The Progressive Empowerment Party wants to fix all of that.
So Paul,
all right, guys, we got to end this segment. We have another segment standing by.
Paul,
final comment from Dindial. Go ahead, please.
So Paul, I just wanted to answer that question. You asked how we are going to fix it, how are we going to get proper people in place. The NT has proposed, and this is what we are saying, that once there is a situation or once we are in service, all state boards, we are thinking that from the state boards must have representation from the opposition and from independents. The state boards must never be just the government in power. So that
I have
accountability for that.
Yeah, I've always said state boards should have government-appointed persons appointed, at least one person appointed by the opposition, and from civil society, professional bodies should appoint persons on state boards for accountability and check and balances. All right, guys, thank you. We got to take a break. We have a newscast coming up, and then we'll be joined by Louis Leasing and Lauren Poucher. We continue our digital debate series right here on Power 102 Digital. Like